Good morning. We are here today with Deborah Gowries of Connections Learning, and it's so much fun to bring you guys a little bit of a snippet of kind of what's going on here and what you guys are doing. And I think in light of everything going on with COVID and the pandemic and remote learning and hybrid schedules and everything always changing, it's kind of fun to be able to pick your brain a little bit about how we can best serve kind of the younger generation. And as parents, what you see as common, potentially like common weaknesses, and how you are a little bit different in your approach. So thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, of course. So Deborah, to start off, I think a fun thing would be for you to kind of explain, how are you seeing a shift in kind of the needs of the kiddos coming through your doors now, and what are you seeing as potentially common issues or common just weaknesses that maybe that you are seeing that you can help solve?
Yeah, well, we see a lot of different things coming through our doors. I've been in business for 25 years, so I can see trends. I can see how things are kind of getting different. We have a lot more auditory processing issues coming in because of the way schools are teaching reading now, which isn't always the best way. We see a lot of that also because kids are gaming so much, so we're seeing a lot more hyperactivity based on the amount of gaming that kids do. So we see a lot of different things, but we address everything. But what's different about how we address it is that when somebody comes to Connections Learning Center, they don't just come in and the kids get tested and I tell them what their reading level is or their math level, and then I say yes, they need reading or math help. What we do here is we want to find out what the foundational issue is. Why are they struggling in reading? Why are they struggling in math? And so we're really looking at what are their core processing skills. Those are skills that all of us need to be really good learners. We need good processing speed and working memory and executive functioning and so forth and so on. And when all those things are in place, school is not that difficult. But if any of those things are weak for whatever reason, no fault of anybody's, not the parents' fault, sometimes it's the school's fault. But anyway, those things need to be strengthened in order for the student to be able to see their full potential. So I'm not really concerned with what grade level they're on. I'm really concerned with what skills do they have. Do they have all those initial skills that you need to be a really good learner? So that's our approach. And most importantly, we have solutions. So once we figure out what's going on and why a student might be struggling, then we have solutions.
I love that, and I love that you said that it's about teaching them how to learn as opposed to focusing on one specific subject or grade level or whatever it might be. So what would, and to kind of go back to, it seems like you said, that it carries them on. The goal is not to be with you long term, correct?
Exactly, right. So we want to get them to the point where they don't need their IEPs or their 504 plans. They don't need us. They don't need a resource teacher at school. They don't need a teacher after school. And we all need help occasionally. Parents are there to do that. But for the most part, we want the kids to be really independent learners. We want them to be at whatever level their true potential is, and that's different for every person. But if you've got those weaknesses, you're not even going to see what your potential is.
Wow.
So
what would be an example? Maybe you could give us it, because you talk so eloquently, layman's terms too, kind of what would that look like in terms of helping a student learn something where maybe they were struggling with
Sure.
a weakness?
So, for instance, we have something that we do here called cognitive brain training. It's our Brain Boost program, and you can't Google it because it's exclusive to Connections Learning Center. But we do have statistics, and we've been very, very successful with it. We've been using it for about 8 years. And what you're doing is a bunch of non-academic activities, but you are challenging the brain a lot. In fact, when I went for the training, I thought, oh my gosh, like I need this, right? Because these things were very difficult to do. And they're not just for children. You could do cognitive brain training with any age. They use it for the elderly too, you know, just to keep our minds as sharp as possible. So it's it can be used for a lot of different things. So if a child comes in and they're very weak in some sort of a processing skill, like let's say working memory, then we can go to this program, we can exercise the working memory part of the brain. So we know that the brain it's called neuroplasticity. That's like the new, not even new, it's been known for a while now, that the brain can change. It doesn't have to stay the same. There are things that we can do to help it. We can actually create new neural pathways. So, so the kids come in, we do these fun things with them, their brains start to improve, their learning improves, and lo and behold, they start doing better in school, work is easier, it's faster. We've even had students who are A and B students come in, but the parents feel they're working too hard. And if you get a really tenacious, bright student, they can have these weaknesses and not even realize it. And they're putting in way too much effort into school. And then you've got the anxiety issues that come because of that. And so we've had some students who have come in and parents have been concerned about anxiety and the level of effort that they're having to put in to get those A's and B's. And lo and behold, there's usually some little weakness there that they're really fighting. And we increase that and it'll cut their time of homework in half. We had one such student, he was a high school student, and now he could join some extracurriculars because he had more time available to him. And he maintained his same A's and B's, but with a lot more ease.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So do you find that, I mean, I've heard a lot of people talking about anxiety with kids right now with being remote and hybrid.
Huge. There's so many reasons why kids have anxiety right now. I mean, I think we're all suffering from anxiety right now. Just life itself is kind of crazy. But even when things are just normal, there are a lot of kids that have anxiety, school anxiety. And unfortunately, there are a lot of doctors out there putting kids on medication for anxiety when it's not really truly anxiety, it's school anxiety. Well, it's school anxiety because they go to school and they don't do well, or they struggle, or they fail, or they feel stupid. So if you just help them to do better in school and their confidence level goes way up, the anxiety goes away. They have nothing to be anxious about anymore. So it's really about what's causing the anxiety now. Right now, with everything that's going on, there's so many reasons to be anxious. But then we have something else we do here called neurofeedback, and that's more brain training, and that has to do with the brain waves and regulating them and kind of helping the brain to regulate itself. It's kind of a complicated subject, not one that I can really go into too much, but there are places you can actually Google. You know, a lot of people are doing neurofeedback right now, and that's fantastic for anxiety, depression, hyperactivity. So we use that a lot as well. We got a lot of tricks in our bag.
It really sounds like it.
We do. We've been specializing in dyslexia for 25 years. So, you know, that's another thing that we do. And I've got the Wilson program that I think is the absolute best reading program out there, and I've tried a few of them, but that's what we've been using. So.
And you really have a personal connection to with your daughter. Can you speak a little bit to that and why you're so passionate about?
Absolutely, because that's where it all started. So my daughter Kristen, who happens to be the director of our Westchester office now, when she's 33 now, so this was a long time ago. When she was back in preschool, I could see there was something going on, a problem. And then as we tried to teach her alphabet, her letters, her sounds, just things were not going right. And back when I got my degree, which was a while ago, education goes through these periods of times. It's kind of strange, and we weren't talking about dyslexia. Education had decided it didn't exist, it was too difficult to define, we're not going to discuss it. So I knew the term, but I didn't really know what it was. Well, by the time she was in the middle of 3rd grade, and mind you, I had a master's degree in special ed. I was supposed to know how to do this.
Yeah.
And I could not teach her to read. I did everything I knew. I talked to every professional I could find. Middle of 3rd grade, she was still not reading. She had learned her sounds, but she had no clue why or what to do with them. So I finally talked to somebody who said, have you checked out back then it was called the Orton Gillingham Dyslexia Association, I think it was Society back then. Now it's the International Dyslexia Association. That's the best place to go for your information, other than us. And so anyway, she wasn't reading at all. So I went to the 9th annual conference, and the first breakout session I went to was about dyslexia. And I sat there and she explained it, and she had a video of this little girl she'd been working with who could have been Kristen easily. And I just sat there and cried because I thought, oh my gosh, I found out what's wrong. But now, and she said, what you need to do is get the Wilson Reading Program. This is the best way to teach a dyslexic how to read. And just for the record too, I want to add in that dyslexia is not about seeing backwards or upside down. That is some fallacy that started, I don't know where, way back when. It's really the language part of the brain, the written language part of the brain, and a dyslexic's brain is actually wired differently. They learn differently. I don't consider it a disorder. I don't even consider it a disability, really. Their brains are just different. But with all the things that we do, you can get them learning the same way as everybody else. Now I'm digressing. So back to Kristen.
No, it's so interesting.
I went to the table where the Wilson Reading people were, and I ordered it, and I signed up for this 3-day overview, and thank goodness I got a lot of common sense when it comes to teaching, because that's what I've been doing, had been doing for so long. So it was easy to pick up, and I sat down with her, and within 1 week she was starting to read.
Wow.
I was blown away. She was blown away. We were both blown away. And by the time she was in 6th grade, she was at grade level, and they said she doesn't need an IEP anymore, and she, I was still helping her a lot with her homework though. That's one thing I found out was, even though she was reading at grade level, she was still taking twice as long to get homework done. She was still having a hard time understanding a new concept. And that's where the brain training comes in, and that's why we can correct that as well. I didn't have that back then. Anyway, I told a couple moms about the Wilson program, and they sent their kids. I knew they were struggling, and they were so excited. They told other moms, and before I knew it, I was hiring teachers to help me. I worked out of my home for 9 years, and then my family kicked me out. They were like, okay, this is getting too intrusive, it's time to leave. And that's how Connections was born.
That's incredible. And so now you have 2 locations.
And now we have 2 locations, yeah. And it's not anything, I never even wrote a business plan. I didn't do anything you're supposed to do.
But you're helping so many kids. So do you find that parents and kids are surprised by the fun activities, as you call them, that they do that maybe don't feel related?
Yes. In fact, the older kids will question you. Why am I doing this? How is this going to help me with my math homework? And so we have to explain to them. So they're doing an exercise, and you'll say, would you know what you're doing by this? Well, you're strengthening the memory part of your brain. And then if you strengthen the memory, if you've got a better memory, you take that to school. So we do have to convince people that there is a carryover, because if what we did only increased the test scores that we have, it wouldn't be worth it. Yeah. It has to transfer over to the school setting, which it does.
And what kind of time commitment, like weekly, do you find that
It
families
depends,
need.
yeah, it depends on what they're doing. So for instance, if somebody needs the Wilson program, that's a minimum of 2 hours a week, 2 separate hours a week. If we're doing the Brain Boost program, that's a minimum of 3 hours a week. And that can look however people want. We're also online or in person now. So
Okay.
because of COVID, we had to jump online.
Got it.
So we're gonna stay online. You know, it's a good thing. It's something I always wanted to have. So now we've got that option for parents.
Yeah, and I think again it's important to note that it's so much more about doing the work so that you don't have to be in the program in the long run. Right?
You're not here
Investing
forever.
a little more time.
Yes. Put the time in now. Let the kids
Reap
be
the
free.
rewards.
Yeah. Down the road.
Yeah.
Right. Because and they're permanent. That's what's so awesome. I mean, everything we do here, it's permanent. So and there is no age. I mean, we have preschoolers come in. Parents don't let anyone tell you that they cannot see a reading problem in kindergarten. You can see it. Believe me, I've been through it as a parent. And that's the other thing. I have 2 hats. Like, I know what it's like for parents. I know what it's like to have a child at home who's struggling. And so I completely relate. And when we go to meetings at schools and teachers are telling parents, well, you shouldn't be doing more than 30 minutes to 60 minutes of homework a night. And the parents sitting there going, I can't figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
I know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Such a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you'd like to share before we talk about how people can get connected in with you?
I could go on and on and on.
So interesting.
It is interesting. I think it's
It
interesting.
is.
But
You're
yes.
changing the course of how,
I just
some of these little brains think.
yeah, it's just difficult for me to watch kids struggle when I know that they don't have to. I know that there are things that can be done for them. We just talked about a few things. We have more.
You do really have all the tools in your
I'm
toolkit.
always looking for things that work and work fast and work well. I want parents to get the biggest bang for their buck.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that it's worth it to do what we do, but I also know that it can be a struggle for parents to come up with the funds. But it's worth it.
Yeah, I think it's so cool that you're such a constant, you're constantly pouring into your own education so that you can give the most cutting edge in
Yes.
terms of, what's coming out. You're talking about things that you've been working with people for a while that are just becoming catchphrases and things like that,
I know. People looked at me like I was some sort of a witch doctor, 20 years ago when I started doing neurofeedback. They were like, neuro, what? You want to do what to my child's brain? I'm like, I promise I'm not putting anything weird in their brain. I'm not putting anything in their brains.
That's incredible. So if people
yeah.
want to get connected, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Our website is connectionslearningcenter.com or connectionslc.com. You'll get there both ways. And you can just fill out the little inquiry form, and we'll call you.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks for
Such
your
a pleasure,
time.
and it's so nice to know that you're able to, like I said, help these little brains have a wonderful experience of having fun and having something that they'll carry with them forever.
Yes.
So it's incredible.
Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Deborah.
All right.
Take care.